yeah, the old time prenup was like, go to adversarial lawyers if you even go, and then they speak to each other and come up with some agreement. But here it's like, well, you're entering your life together, and communication is really one of the things that breaks up marriages, failure to communicate in a healthy way. So if we can help people sort of get into those healthy habits.
Hi, I'm Rachel Green, Brooklyn-based divorce mediator and collaborative attorney, and this is my podcast, Keep the Kids in Mind. Join me as I chat with other industry professionals about everything from smoothly navigating your way through divorce to prenups, all the while keeping the kids in mind. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is Keep the Kids in Mind, where we talk about families in transition. This morning, I'm very pleased that Lesley Friedland has agreed to join us. She has had a very interesting journey in her career, and it led her to start a wonderful organization called FamilyKind. Welcome, Lesley.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for the invitation.
Yes, great to have you here. So just to start, would you please share with our listeners something about what led you to start FamilyKind? Or
Sure.
maybe you should start, maybe you should start by telling us what FamilyKind does, and then we'll go back to what led you to start FamilyKind.
Sure, my pleasure. I just want to say I'm really honored to be here with you, Rachel. You are really such a luminary in our field, and that you thought to do a podcast, Keep Your Kids in Mind, which is so important and actually the focus of FamilyKind. So I want to thank you for supporting FamilyKind, training us, and also inviting me here today.
Well, I really find that it's the kids, it's thinking about the kids. That's what led me to do this work.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're the innocent participants. They didn't ask to have their families restructured. It's because of what's going on between their parents, and we all want them to come through as strong and healthy as they can, and we want to keep them in mind, even though adults are having their own conflicts. So it sounds like you and I are aligned in that feeling. That's so important.
For sure, Rachel. In fact, as you say, we all, including the parents, want their children to flourish emotionally and physically. But when they are put in a stressful situation, such as family transition, divorce, separation, it's always hard to be their best selves. So I think that we owe, these reminders really help families, and the support you give and others give and that we give help families transition in a healthy way. Because as you say, the kids are what we all really care about, having them thrive. So FamilyKind is a non-for-profit organization, and we basically provide supportive services to families who are transitioning through divorce and separation. We are lawyers, mediators, and educators, but we do not practice law at FamilyKind. We don't give therapy. The heart of what we do is parent education, mediation, parenting coordination, coaching, a variety of supportive services offered on a sliding fee scale, because we believe that families of all different configurations, financial means, should have the opportunity to have high quality care as they transition. And our second mission is to really change the way our society views separation and divorce, meaning bring it out of the shadows, make it so people really have the opportunity to get the help they need. Today, often people, if they go with a friend for coffee, and they tell their friend, we're getting divorced, they might say, oh, what did he do? What did she do? Get the best lawyer. Um, we want to sort of change that to say, okay, take a breath. What what's the plan for the kids for now? And you know that there are like lots of options. You know, lawyers can be helpful, the court can be helpful, but there are lots of different ways to proceed through this transition. Have you gone to a class? So basically, that's what we do. Even though I would say most of our services are for adults and parents, our focus is the kids. Because when, as we touched on, when parents aren't able to function or be their best selves, the kids can't be either.
And people who are going through transition sometimes are so much experiencing their own pain that it's hard for them to think of anybody else.
Yeah,
Um, so
it's
so FamilyKind offers a lot of different services. So when somebody starts, like, do they usually call you saying we're looking for mediation, or do they call you saying we know you provide services, tell us what to do next?
that's a good question. Um, so many times people call and they don't know, you know, what end is up, because when you think about it, when we're growing up, we do think about a lot of things. We think about where we might live, what profession or job we might want, what type of partner we would like. But we spend, I guarantee, no time thinking about how am I going to have the best divorce ever? When I get married, I'm going to get a divorce and this is what I'll do. So when the divorce or separation comes upon a person, not only even in the best of circumstances, say two people just feel, you know what, we want to amicably
Right.
separate.
We've grown apart. Like sometimes it is really mutual. Right.
Exactly. It's still a lonely experience because when you think about it, your whole world is affected. You know, your parenting, your finances, where you're going to live, your social circle. So we try to just provide so many different services. So to answer to your specific question, sometimes people know what they need because we run a New York State certified parent education class for divorcing parents. This kind of class is actually mandated in many states in this country. And we would like it to be mandated in New York as well,
I
because
know,
it
because
really,
there's only a benefit. I mean, it's education. So why can't we
exactly.
mandate it? Yeah. New York is
And
not
there's
always
been
a leader in family law, but
exactly right. And we're in an advocacy group to help it get mandated because right now a judge may order people in. So sometimes they come and call us and they say, we would like to attend your certified class. Great. But many times they call and they say, we don't even know what we need or want. So we have two intake people who are just incredible. And they say, you know, take a deep breath, let's talk. If we feel we can't help them with one of our services, we refer them out to trusted partners like you, Rachel, or other um, groups or individuals who can do the work if we can't do it.
and so then your intake people would ask them whether they've taken parent education, and then if they and then would you discuss the different process options: mediation, collaborative divorce, litigation?
Yes, so in our certified class, we discuss all of those things. There's a legal information, not advice, never advice, legal information portion, which we sort of demystify terms that people may hear in the court and different processes. The heart of what we do are the tools, skills, and strategies. So when I think you know this, and I think it's common knowledge maybe in our world, divorce is really 95% emotional and 5% legal, yet
Hmm.
we treat it like a fully legal proceeding. So what we do is, yes, we say, we'd like you to take a class to understand things. And depending on their situation, uh, what services may be available to them. if they can't even meet our sliding scale fees, we are lucky enough to have gotten a few grants where we can even serve people free of charge when they are financially unable to take advantage of some of our supportive services, which could be, a number of different ones. Something also, Rachel, that we do. We like to fill gaps. Like, we don't like to repeat. If services are out there and they're doing a great job, great. But where there are gaps, we like to fill them. So something recently that we've come upon is the need for premarital or prenuptial mediation.
Yeah,
So,
that's a
right.
great process because,
Mhm.
when you think about it, people who are joining their lives together, ideally would be able to talk about everything. And in a prenup mediation process, they really have a chance to share, their histories and come to a deeper understanding of their expectations about money. And a lot of times we assume our experiences growing up are typical of other people, but one thing I've learned in this work is that really every family is different and everybody's had different experiences, and to make that explicit can only strengthen their relationship. So that's
Mhm.
great that you guys are doing that.
Right. And I know, you do, all sorts of mediation, Rachel, which is so great because the idea is, yeah, the old time prenup was like, go to adversarial lawyers, if you even go, and then they speak to each other and come up with some agreement. But here it's like, well, you're entering your life together, and communication is really one of the things that breaks up marriages, failure to communicate in a healthy way. So if we can help people sort of get into those healthy habits, and with that, we have a financial class. We have these two excellent financial, um, professionals. And before people go to our prenuptial mediation or pre-cohabitation mediation, you don't have to be getting married. Um, we ask that they go to our class, which really helps them, just like you say, understand themselves financially and their partner, because it's really surprising how hard it is. You have an idea, you know what your parents did and how you are, but like to really get a little better understanding of yourself and of your partner goes a long way to say, hey, you know what, we're not the same. So, let's see how we can talk about our differences
Yeah,
in a
that's
healthy
wonderful.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like issues that people have are that come up in prenup mediation could be, spending versus saving is like a big thing, and they always say opposites attract. It seems like very often savers marry spenders and spenders marry savers,
Mhm.
and then they have a conflict about that. Um, and also like whether to have separate or joint accounts, joint bank.
Mhm.
I mean, my parents had everything joint, and I just assumed that I would have everything joint. But I've certainly talked to people who are shocked by that. They go, "Oh, you have no privacy," or if I buy my spouse a present, they're going to know how much it costs because it's going to be on the same credit card bill. So
Uh-huh.
anyway, people
Different
have
perspectives. Mhm.
different perspectives, right? I'm working with a couple right now where uh, the one of them is like a big money person who has a startup company, and the kind of internet millionaire type, and 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 they feel that everything should be joint. So even though he did these things before the marriage, he eventually wants everything to be like over the first 20 years of their marriage, that slowly even his premarital property is going to become joint. So
Mm.
it's very interesting that they came up with this themselves,
Mhm.
through the discussion in mediation. um,
That's
they,
excellent. Because what you also did was like you gave them tools and strategies for other issues that are going to come up later, because this was one, big issue. They work together, and hopefully when other, you know, things that need to be decided or different situations arise, they'll be able to call on what you've, talked about or shown them in the room.
right. And it's interesting too, because he said, we're not just roommates, we're becoming husband and wife. And that's different. And the interesting thing I thought about this couple is that, if they went to traditional lawyers, the lawyer would say, no, that's your separate property. You don't have to give any of it to her. But he understands that and he doesn't care. It's like their own standards of fairness and what will work. And, it's kind of moving. It's kind of been a moving process to work with them.
Yeah, really nice, really nice.
Yeah. But I guess you know that. And that's why you started FamilyKind, to offer these services at a sliding fee scale, because sliding scale fee, because um, everybody should have access to these alternative options. And yeah.
I just want to say, I don't even like that. I know we all use it, ADR, alternative. What I guess we're hoping is that it will be just, instead of alternative and litigation being the go-to, litigation would just be one of many resources for people to use. So it'd just be like dispute resolution or something.
Yeah. So what led you to start FamilyKind?
Right. So I am a lawyer, and I am a trained mediator, even though I don't mediate. Um, I worked in the New York City Family Court for over 25 years. I was something called a court attorney, that's an assistant to a judge, and then something called a court attorney referee, and that's someone who hears cases. And when I was raising my two children, I went part-time. So I was there over 25 years. And I really love the work. I always wanted to do family work and public interest work. So it was sort of a good melding of what I wanted to do. And it was obviously very court-based. But during my time there, I was asked to oversee the Parent Education and Mediation Department in Kings County. And I really saw how incredible these programs were in helping families transition in a healthier way. The court can do just so much, but when you give people different ways to negotiate, information and tools, it makes such a difference for them, especially for their children, because it makes them, the parents, gives them tools and strategies on how to conduct themselves with each other and with the kids. So it was all good. Everything's going along. And the financial crisis happened in 2008, 2009. And many, if not all, the supportive services were cut out of family court. And I
Oh,
went back into the courtroom, and it was devastating. I really fought it. And I said, it's such a drop in the bucket for the budget to keep these programs, but so important for the families. But the word came down, we are just all hands on deck in the courtrooms. And I did go back into the courtroom, but I had lost my mojo at that point, for several reasons. But I guess the most of which had to do with I didn't feel I was giving, or the courts were giving, sort of the quality care that we would like to. So, for example, if a couple came into the courtroom and then I would say, okay, come back in 6 weeks for an adjournment, and they would say, what? Like, I'm going to lose my job. Like, which I knew was true because how many jobs can you go hopping in and out of court or
Yeah, that's
personal
true.
appointments?
Right.
And I also knew I wasn't giving them much to help them in between. I wasn't sending them to parent ed. We didn't have that. I wasn't sending them to mediation. Positive things weren't really going to be happening. So I had to do a lot of soul searching because I, to me, if I'm going to do a job, I've got to really believe in it. So it was really with the support of my family and friends. They said, wow, you could leave your job and do something. What's your passion? And it was a difficult time when you uproot from a job that you really did love and a good paycheck and make a change. But it really inspired me because of my colleagues, friends, family to say, well, what I really believe in is healthy families. And I think I and we as a team can do something to fill the gaps that have been left. So in 2012, I left the job at Family Court and started FamilyKind. And it was slow going and a lot of hard work on many people's parts. And here we are, we're almost 11 years in. But when you're trying to change the culture of something, uh, it's sometimes slow going. So we're serving people, we're successful, but I don't think many people really realize even that about mediation, or about um, other ways to divorce and separate besides going to court.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think part of it is like a failure of the media, which we're trying to rectify right now by having this podcast. Um,
Mhm.
but in on TV and in movies, they tend to portray litigation. Oh, and another thing is I find that my clients have very warped or inaccurate understanding of what happens in litigation. Um,
Mhm.
because I mean, I had a couple I was working with, and they were having conflicts over support, both spousal and child support. And we had a mediation session on a Tuesday, and the husband was very frustrated. He said, "Forget it. I'm going to go to court. I'm free Friday morning. I'm going to go in." Rachel, how does that work? I'll just go to court and see the judge, and then the judge will just listen to us and tell us what the support should be. And he thought that he could just walk in one day and get
Right.
an order for support. And I mean, what I've heard from my friends who litigate, who go to court, the courts have not recovered very well from the COVID yet. And they're so backed up that it can take years to get an order for support. Um, and people also often have a fantasy that they're gonna get before the judge, and the judge is gonna listen to them and hear them. And you know,
Mhm.
uh, how do you think the judge is going to take it when I play the crazy voicemail that you left me the other night? The judge is going to realize that you are not capable of taking care of our child. And I mean, in addition to the fact that it's going to take a year, 2 years before they actually are before the judge, um, do you think the judge is going to listen to the voicemail? I I don't know, but I don't think the judge is gonna, people imagine hope, but they imagine that the judge is gonna hear it and say, "Oh, you poor thing. You've suffered all these years putting up with that jerk.
Yeah.
You deserve everything you want." And I have never, I mean, honestly, I've been doing this work for 27, coming up on 27 years at this point, and I have honestly never talked to somebody who said, "We went to court and it was wonderful. I'm
Mhm.
so happy with the experience and the outcome." I have
Mhm.
never heard anybody say that. Even if they're happy with the outcome, they're unhappy about how much it cost them.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I hear everything you're saying, and it's really quite true. The courts are beleaguered, even before COVID, especially family court, underfunded, not enough resources. So even on their best day, it was hard to do the best work. So you're right, the delays, all of that are just inherent in the system. Even if individuals in the court want to do the best they can do, there's so many things that cause, sluggish movement. So you make, good points. Like people see these shows, they're like, I'm gonna tell my side, and the judge is going to understand it. But in reality, we know that the judge doesn't know either person, and they're not going to make a snap decision. And oftentimes, parents come in with very divergent type of positions. So that's why when we talk about mediation, we talk about, well, what's beneath the position, right? What's the interest? But a court really just goes with the position and
Mm.
doesn't really have the time to go beyond that. And plus, there are lots of rules of evidence to make sure that anything that does come in is proper. So it's a whole different system. And um, you know, when I was a referee, I settled, I would say, like 95 plus of my cases, because um and I would tell the people, I could make a decision for you. One of you would probably like it, one of you would not. But the fact is, a divorce or separation is it's a milestone, but you're forever parents. So is this really going to be something that you want me to decide for now, or is it something that we can talk about, since you two are the best as experts? And most of the people sort of got it, or maybe they were worn down because they were in court so long. They're like, we're just going to settle it. But that's why having other systems in place is so important. Once in a while, a case does need to go through litigation, but I think even litigators and courts appreciate it when parents sort of understand, like, move forward. I think what we're talking about, Rachel, is like in court, there's like a winner and a loser. But what we're all trying to do, litigators, courts, mediators, educators, is like say, well, the winner should be the children. That's all there is to it. And how are we going to get there? And parents want that too, right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
we're so mired in like, well, no, I got 51% of the time, so I'm the winner. Really? I use this example in class where a couple comes out of court, and the mother tells her friend, "Oh, I'm so glad that's over. I won the case." And a friend says, you didn't win. You only have Johnny like 40% of the time. Like, you call that a win? Do I? Oh yeah. Johnny's paternal grandmother lives across the street from the school. Johnny goes there after school, gets these home baked cookies, does his homework, settles down, and I'm at work and I'm focusing on my work because I know what's happening with Johnny. Then when we're together, I can really be fully there. So just trying to change that winning to, hey, okay, what's happening with the kids and how can we best keep them in mind, like you say. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. It's giving me goosebumps, actually. I
Mm-hmm.
hate when parents start talking about percentages of time,
Mm-hmm.
as if that's the experience the children, as if a child would say, "Oh, I can't wait to spend my 35% of time with my dad this week." You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of sad when
Mm-hmm.
people are that, feeling that deprived of time that they have to
Right.
cut it up that way. I I went to a seminar some years ago, and a judge was talking about a case that came before her. I mean, it was in litigation, and they were bitterly fighting over the children's schedule. So the judge asked to speak to the children, who were at that point, 12 and 14.
Mhm.
And judges are allowed to speak to children. They call it an in-camera interview, but it's just the
Right.
judge in the chambers, not in the big courtroom, but in a more intimate environment. And the judge would see the children and talk to them. And these children were very confused about what their parents were fighting over, because the parents were fighting over whether it would be a 50-50 schedule or every other weekend. One parent wanted, it was the mother wanted dad to just have the kids every other weekend, and dad wanted them every other week.
Mhm.
And the kids were in middle school and high school, and they were very busy. They had, 2 to 3 hours of homework every night. They were taking music lessons and swim classes,
Mhm.
and, other extracurricular activities. And the weekends were the only time that they had to relax and spend time at all with their parents. They felt like during the week they were just running around. There were
Mhm.
hasty transportation intervals, but they felt like every other weekend was 50-50 time.
Uh-huh.
So, that was, the judge found that so interesting, that to the children it made no difference where they were sleeping.
Mhm.
So,
It's
keep the kids in mind.
Yeah. You know what? I think that is a great example, and it's to really understand, like, uh where the kids are coming from, and uh how to move forward in your own lives. um that it's going to be kind of a stretch, but to sort of accommodate. I use this example in class sometimes, which is about what mediation might be, which really connects with this weekend time. In a court, say a couple comes in, and the mom says, I want every weekend, and the father says, I want every weekend. And that's their position, right? So that's it. So then they do investigations, reports like, well, where should the child be, on the weekend? But in mediation, it's a time where you can really go, what's beneath that position? So it turns out that the mom says, you know what? Sally, who's 8, has been going through so much changes in every which way. I would like her to go to the church, the same church she's been going to every weekend for the continuity. And the dad's like, well, you know what? Um, there's nothing like weekend time. If we want to wake up late, stay in our pajamas, go to a movie, like the weeks are so rushed, as you're pointing to, and it's a special time. So, okay, so we have their positions, we have why they have their positions. But when we dig down into their interests, they both want Sally to have a good life. The dad doesn't object to Sally going to church, and the church has services Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. And the dad doesn't mind bringing Sally to church. So both of their interests can be met. Sally goes to church, and the father has weekend time.
Mhm.
But because they were able to mediate and really go deeper to the position, they were able to come to a resolution. So just pointing out, the good work you do, Rachel, the good work we do, to really help. There are just so many ways to get to the end, but if we can keep the kids in mind before, during, and after. um, and one other thing you pointed to, I think, is kids are half of each parent, whether they're adopted, whatever it is, they are half. So when they hear bad things about the other parent, you may feel anger, and there are ways to address that, but it hurts them. So divorce is not even the risk factor for kids. It isn't. It's how it's handled.
Yeah.
So the loyalty
It's
conflict,
the high conflict, right? It's the high
yes,
conflict that really hurts kids, not this living in two homes.
that's right. And parents have some control over it. You
Mm.
might they might think they don't, but then they can come to places where we sort of say, take a breath and let's see how we can all get to the end that we want.
And also going to mediation to have these discussions out of earshot of the children allows the
Yes.
parents someplace to express their feelings because, of course, they have strong feelings.
Hmm.
And of course, they're going through their own journey adjusting to the separation, but they can do it out of earshot of the children.
Exactly. And that's so important because even the most well-meaning people, I know I've said things on the phone with my children around that like I probably shouldn't have said, or it's so easy to fall into sort of, not great habits. So exactly in the mediation room, and also you could talk about stress relievers in the mediation room and say, well, okay, in between sessions, what are you going to do so that you are keeping the kids sort of away from this?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's wonderful work, and hopefully we are helping many families get through it
Mhm.
in the best way possible, and
Yes,
so that they come through and they're able to be the best parents that they can be, and their children will come through okay. I had one couple I was working with, and and one parent said, um, is this going to affect my child? Is there a way for us to just protect him and not have him affected? And I said, no. I mean, I think
mhm.
for children, the separation of their parents is going to make a before and after demarcation in their childhoods. But are they going to be okay? Yes,
Mhm.
they can
Mhm.
be okay. And
Mhm.
that's what we're trying to do is help guide them to help their children to come out and be okay. So,
Exactly. I think that's a good point, just to say, yeah, this is happening, but it doesn't have to be, the family configuration really wasn't working great before. So it's the end of something, but it's
yeah,
also the beginning of something.
that's right. That's right. That's
Mhm.
absolutely
Mhm.
true.
Mhm.
Well, Leslie, thank you so much for the work that you do and
Oh.
for the caring that I can tell you have for all the families that you've worked with over the
Mhm.
many years, and for the great work that FamilyKind is doing that I hear about all the time from my colleagues and from clients.
Well,
So,
Rachel, I thank you for those kind words, and thank you for this opportunity. Talking to you, whether on screen or off, is always a pleasure, and I really feel honored to be in your sphere and keep up your great work too.
well, I feel the same way about you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Leslie. So, thanks
Thank
for
you.
listening, and everybody keep the kids in mind. You can reach Leslie at FamilyKind. In our show notes below, we'll put your contact information, and you can also reach me. And everybody stay well.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care. Thank you.